So, as I was introduced, I'm Tim Young. Normally when I'm asked to speak, I tend to wing it. I just, go out and talk about whatever, I think the subject should be on. I thought this is the Black Eyed Susan Awards, and I should maybe prepare something, so I put together, there it is. So, I should have a title for my talk tonight, and this one seemed like okay, but I wasn't sure, so, so then I thought to try and answer the title of my new book, but it's not really appropriate because I actually do like talking about my books a lot. As my wife will attest, I don't shut up about them very often. So finally I decided on how to do everything wrong and still somehow get published. I've been wanting to do children's books for a really long time, ever since I was a little kid, really. And I ended up going to Pratt Institute as an illustration major, and I knew I could do art. I'm an illustrator first, and I had ideas for stories, but I never really thought that I was going to write them. I thought someone was going to come along and say, "Oh, that's a great idea. I'll write that story for you." But that guy never showed up. So eventually, I had to, kind of figure out what I was going to write my stories about. Now, I've had this fun career prior to being a published author illustrator. One of my first jobs out of college was working on Pee-wee's Playhouse, doing the models for the penny cartoons. I got to work with Nick Park, who went on to do the Wallace and Gromit movies and all kinds of fun stuff. And I got to work for a whole year, working on animation models with all kinds of really talented people. After that, I got into toys, which was another interest of mine. And so aside from being I can draw and paint, I'm a sculptor. These were the very first Simpson toys ever done. They were sold at Burger King when the series was brand new. I had to figure out how to make Bart's hair work in 3 dimensions and Lisa's and Maggie's hair work in 3 dimensions. It was a lot of fun. Another fun job that I had was working as design director for this toy company called The Idea Factory. We created these things called the Meanies, which were a parody of Beanie Babies. So they were kind of boy-oriented, gross humor, and it was perfect for me. And I've also done, illustrations for magazines and all different kinds of stuff. So I've had this really, really fun, meandering career where I've done all kinds of things. I've never really made any money, but I got a paycheck and it was great. Now with the Meanies, as I said, I didn't think I was a writer, but one of the things we had to do, since all the Thai Beanie Babies had poems on their hang tags, we had to come up with a poem for ourselves. So we decided to do limericks. And somehow I managed to write about half of the limericks that we did. So like one of my favorites was for Lucky the Rabbit, who has 1 foot. His poem was, "Lucky's so mad he's insane. He has every right to complain. He'd like to kick rump, but he can't with a stump because his foot is someone's keychain." And so I started to think, well, maybe I do have some talent with writing. I mean, I consider myself a character designer. I've drawn and created all different kinds of characters throughout my career, whether for greeting cards or magazine illustrations or, all kinds of things. A lot of my stuff has never actually been seen in the public because a lot of it was for in-house presentations, which really, it's kind of disappointing as an illustrator. You want your stuff to be seen, but it's you have to sign a confidentiality agreement. You can't really claim it as your own. But because I did all these characters, when it came time to, I created a company called Creatures and Characters. And when I started to really seriously think about trying to get published, I thought, well, I really need to do this properly. So I formed this company and I got some investment money. And I was able to use that to spend a lot of time developing some of my ideas. So I was developing ideas for toys, for books, and for animated shows. And I concentrated on toys first because I had just come out of the toy industry. And I created all these toy prototypes and I showed them around. And everyone looked at them and said, wow, these are really neat. We might do these. Where's the book these characters are in? Or where's the show they're from? And I thought, all right, well, let me take a step back. And I started developing my book ideas next. And I got really, really lucky. Because when I just started doing that, I met a guy named Danny Tepper who was published with Random House. And he said, oh, let me set you up with a meeting with my editor at Random House. And what I didn't know at the time was nobody just gets to have a meeting with an editor at Random House. That's just unheard of that you get a pitch meeting. You have to send your stuff in. It's got to go into the slush pile. Hopefully some intern's going to read it and pass it on to somebody higher up than them, and then it's eventually going to get to an editor, and maybe, possibly, you'll catch someone's attention and get published. But I got this pitch meeting, and I went and saw Heidi Kilgrass, who's a big editor at Random House, and I pitched her all these ideas. I had about a dozen different ideas in various stages of finish, and on every page, because I had formed this company, was my logo at the bottom with my address. And she kept looking at my logo saying, I love your logo. Now her response to some of my book ideas was, yeah, that's kind of nice, that's okay. This one's been done. But she kept coming back to my logo saying, I really love your logo. And finally she said, I want to do a book that looks like your logo. I thought, okay. None of what I showed her was in this style. It was all really high-end, slick illustration. So I thought, all right, well, let me see what I can do. And I went home and I drove from New York back to Maryland. And on the way, I thought, well, I got to think of an idea for this book. If I'm going to use this, I like drawing monsters. Maybe I'll do silhouette monsters. I'm looking for an idea. I'm looking for a monster. And the title popped into my head. And then it kind of just started rolling. And so this is my first book. And, well, I'll tell you more in a minute, but first let me read it to you. And it's a small crowd. I could read it here, but I prepared this, so I want to do it this way because it's not fun. So this is, I'm looking for a monster, which was published by Random House in 2008. I'm looking for a monster. Beware monsters. I'm looking for a big monster. But not that big. I want a scary monster. And that's the scary monster page. And it kind of works. It should have horns, but not antlers. Definitely not antlers. It could have scales, or feathers, or fur, but not slime. I don't like slimy monsters. Hey, you're perfect. You're the monster I'm looking for. Why am I looking for a monster? To play with me and my other monsters, of course. So that's the last breath. Now, when I pitched this book to Random House, it was just a picture book. It was just illustrated throughout. And they picked it up. Like 2 weeks after I had driven home, I sent her the outline for this. And about a week later, she sent it in front of her acquisitions board, and they picked it up, and I had a contract. And every author that I subsequently meet, when I tell them this story, they hate me. It doesn't take that. You can't do it that quickly. Well, somehow lightning struck. So this was great. I had this, book with Random House. They said, we'd like to turn it into like a pop-up book or a lift the flap book. And I said, okay. And I figured out how to do it. Because I've had this, this background I explained of doing all this fun stuff. I thought this is a fun challenge. And so I had to figure out how to make all this stuff work. I looked at a whole bunch of different pop-up books and had a great time. So I had, this relationship with Random House now, and so I started sending other book ideas to Heidi, most of which she really, really liked. And shortly after we contracted for I'm Looking for a Monster and finished it off, I got a contract to do I'm Looking for a Dinosaur. Now, everyone remembers this book, right? You've all seen this? No, you haven't. This is one of the very few copies of I'm Looking for a Dinosaur. This is a press proof that was in China. This was hand, assembled. This was ready to go, and the economy tanked. And half their catalog was cut, including this one. If it had been, if the decision was made 2 weeks later, I'm Looking for a Dinosaur would have been out in 2009. And I had also sent her a bunch of ideas for other picture books as well. But their marketing department kept saying, like, well, you know, this guy's pop-up books they sell for $9.99. To do a picture book for $16.99, people are going to like not want to pay as much because he's already got the cheaper books. Like, what does it matter? But that's marketing for you. So I had, you know, these two books were under contract, and we were in discussions for I'm Looking for a Bad Guy as a third one. And I had already sent her They're Coming, and I had sent her Shadows on My Wall, and she loved all of them. And there were a few others that were on her desk. And when the economy tanked and they cut the I'm Looking for a Dinosaur, they had to turn everything back to me. So suddenly I was back where I was started from. Now at that same time, I had just picked up an agent to help me get into some of the other publishers. His name is Ronnie Herman, and she's a really good agent for author illustrators. But even Ronnie Herman, during the downturn of the economy, couldn't find a home for my books. So I had to, you know, cancel all these, and she took them over and she started showing them around. And people were saying, like, you know, I don't know, they're nice. I got the standard, you know, stuff about, well, these are really, really nice, but they're not right for us right now, over and over and over again. So I started to get disenchanted, and I prepared Shadows on My Wall, and They're Coming, to self-publish them on the iPad. I finished them off. I had gotten a lot of good feedback and input from a lot of different people, and I really felt that they were ready, so I got them all ready. And then I was at, you know, everyone knows the SCWBI, the Society of Book Writer and Illustrator. I was at a conference 2 summers ago, and I had this idea for I Hate Picture Books, and I thought, this has to come out as a real book, and I really have to find a publisher. So 2 Novembers ago, I was introduced to people at Schiffer Publishing, which nobody has heard of, which is fine. Schiffer is up in Pennsylvania. They've been publishing for 30-some-odd years. They've been a family business, but they're starting to try to expand their children's book. And I sent them 4 books, and I got an email the next week saying, we want all 4 of them. And because 2 of them were ready, last summer, both of these came out. So because they didn't compete with one another, they decided they'd put them both out at once. And so this is They're Coming. And as I said, this could have been a Random House book, but it didn't quite make it. So I have to do my spooky books. They're coming. The creepy fiends that emerge at twilight. They're coming. The slimy things from the deep, dark waters. They're coming. The awful beasts in the misty moonlight. They're coming. They're coming. They're coming. The evil creatures who lurk in foggy streets. They're coming. The magical ones that swoop and soar, they're coming. The restless ghouls from their grim graveyards, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming. The vengeful ghosts that haunt the frightful woods, they're coming. The ancient dead from dusty hidden tombs, they're coming. The eerie giants that dwell in dark forgotten forests, they're coming. They're coming. They're coming. They're coming. They're coming to my party. Are you coming? So I had done this book because Heidi had reacted so much to the silhouetted style that I wanted to expand on it, and I was playing around with deeper backgrounds with, you know, a natural use for an unlighted character in front of it. And it was a lot of fun putting this together. And then Shadows on My Wall was also another one that I was reacting to what she was saying to me in terms of none of the books that I've subsequently published were pitched in that original meeting. All of those, like, I may go back to them someday, but all of these are kind of like in reaction to what either Random House was looking for or ideas I've had since. So Shadows on My Wall is something that is based on, as a child, I had this room and we lived near a highway and all the traffic lights would make all these shadows on my wall. And I remember this distinctly. And so that's where this comes from. The street lights make shadows on my wall. I used to see monsters and I was scared. Then I thought they looked like dinosaurs. I didn't like dinosaurs. So I was less scared. Once, I thought there was a real lion outside. But it was just my cat. I started seeing all kinds of things in the shadows. One night, a bunch of pirates showed up. I hid under the bed so they could not see me. And I saw a really fierce dragon another night. So I made a little friend for him. Next, I saw a bunch of wriggling aliens. So I got up and wriggled around with them. And then I saw this big, giant, angry robot. So I put on a cape and chased him away. After that, Christmas, I was sure that I saw Santa Claus. So now I've learned if I ever think I see scary things, I change them into fun things to play with. And then at the end of the book, and this was a suggestion from my agent, of doing actual shadow animals that you can learn how to do. And if you, with the style of this book, this came out of my my animation background, where I wanted to do something where it was a set that the character was on, and only the character moved around, and the shadows on the wall changed, and everything else stays almost exactly the same, except for the ball that was on the dresser throughout. So that was a lot of fun putting these together, and these had a good reaction, and they both came out last August, and sales have been pretty good, and I've been doing a lot of school visits and signings and things. As I say, this one the idea came 2 summers ago. I was at this convention, and I was in this seminar, and someone made this offhand comment about Paddington Bear and his immigration status. And, how he gets away with being in Britain for so long. But we were talking about classic children's book characters and doing something with them. And I've always loved parody. I mean, I've always wanted to find a way to use parody. And I have drawn, throughout my career, I've used tons of different styles of artwork, and I've prided myself on being able to, I worked for Disney, I worked for, all these different companies, and I've had to make stuff look like their style. So I've had this talent to do so. And this just kind of rolled out of my head in a weekend, this idea for this book. And I started drawing it, and as I say, I felt it really had to come out as a real paper book to have the impact that I thought it would have. So let me read you. I hate picture books. I hate picture books. I never want to read another one, a picture book. So I'm getting rid of all of them, because all they do is get me in trouble. Once, Mom read me this book about that kid in his purple crayon. But when I drew on the wall, she sent me to bed without dinner. I was very angry, so I wished my room would turn into a forest, and that a boat would come and take me away. The next morning, I woke up to find nothing. No forest, no boat, no wild things anywhere. Nothing but my stupid room and my stupid picture books. I started to think that I really didn't like picture books at all. I mean, they're really dumb, because toy bears don't talk or walk around, and cows can't. And caterpillars don't eat salami or Swiss cheese. And there's no possible way that a pigeon could even imagine it could drive a bus. Then things really got bad. One day, I was looking for a snack, and I found green ham in the refrigerator. It looked disgusting. But that book told me I should try it. You know what happened next? I threw up all over the kitchen. I'd like to see them put that in a picture book. But the worst thing, there's this book about this baby bird. It can't find its mother, and it looks everywhere. None of these animals can help the baby bird. You know what this book made me do? It made me cry. Like where you think the snort is going to eat the bird, and then it puts it back in its nest. I love that book. I mean, I hate that book. It was the first one I threw away. Wait, I do love that book. I gotta find that book. I know it's in here somewhere. Wait, I can't get rid of this one. Or this one. Or this one either. I can't throw away any of these. I mean, I love this book about the flying snowman. And the one with the great big stack of turtles. And this one with the mouse who wants a cookie. Or this one where the bears hunt for honey. I don't know what I was thinking. I can't throw away any of these books. Wait, here's the book I was looking for. I do love this book. What? So I like picture books. I changed my mind, okay? Now go away. I just want to read my picture books.